very special recording today. I am going to be talking about what is going on in the energy right now for January. There is, a lot that has been showing up for so many of us. And that's something I want to talk about here. You could think of this as kind of like a monthly, a January check-in, because the energy is so intense right now. Like if you have been feeling the intensity of this energy, it's a very different January than I've ever felt before, especially since being on my journey. And so if you're feeling the intensity of the energy, one, know that you're not alone. I've been talking a lot about this with the women in our Empowered Awakening program, because there's big stuff showing up for so many of us. And I'm going to break down in today's video, especially from the Akashic Records, like why January feels the way it feels right now, how this is related to what you desire, because it is. I'm going to talk a bit about what I have been moving through, and then I'm also going to leave you with some tools and just some things to be thinking about in terms of how to support yourself in this energy. Because it's not going to be like this forever. Not something that you can really remind yourself, especially when you're having those days where you're in it. I've definitely been feeling that. It's not going to be like this forever, and January is in preparation for you. You are in a massive initiation right now. And this is, it almost feels like and I'm going to be reading a bit off my notes. I've written quite a bit down as well in terms of how to understand the energy of this month. It almost feels for some of us like we're in a holding pattern. And yet, so the energy feels slow, but very intense. You might even feel a chaos to the energy. That's because there's still a lot of karmic energy showing up. Why? Because 2026 there are a lot of new cycles beginning, new chapters, not just because it's a new year that we're slowly unfolding into. No, it's because actually it's a year one. So there's big new cycles and chapters beginning for so many of us. And, what's also coming through here is if you did the work in 2025, if you were really in there excavating was a big theme for 2025. If you were in there excavating, January will most likely still feel intense, but what's really showing up here is a lot of residual energy, old residual stuff that's showing up that's really asking you to more deeply integrate and shed what is no longer in alignment as you're stepping into some big new cycles. Like the reason why for so many of us January has felt so intense these first 11 days is because it's almost like the universe, our souls are being like, so much of this is not coming. So the more that's showing up for you actually right now, the better. Because the more that's showing up, the more that's ready to be cleared, that's not going to be going with you. And listen, a piece on this, because I'm not a huge fan of saying parts of us, like these pieces of us die or parts of us die. I don't think that actually feels really safe to the system. I look at it more as like, when I say that pieces aren't going to go with you, it could actually be physical pieces in your life, like relationships or a job or, just like some of those more material things, like a home. I just moved at the end of last year. I was not supposed to stay in that home entering into this next phase, this next season. And so those are going to be shedding, releasing. But what I also mean when I say they're not meant to go with you, when we look at the inner things that are showing up for you. So these could be like, you might be noticing that there's old ways of being, old ways, old beliefs that you have of how things worked or how things were, or who you're supposed to be, how you're supposed to show up in your life. old ways of being in terms of how you showed up in relationships, patterns, relationship patterns. And so a lot of that is showing up because it's not supposed to go with you in the same way. And again, it's not that these pieces just die off. You have to think that when there are parts of you that are showing up that maybe don't feel good, or you do it from a place of survival, or you do it from a place of just, you've done it your whole life, that's shadow, okay? And so we don't just kill off the shadow, we actually learn how to integrate it into our system. Because if you think about these parts that show up for you, that shadow actually has a light expression. So, okay, here's a great example. Let's say like people pleasing is a shadow piece for you, and people pleasing, and it's hard to put in boundaries. So that's a shadow way that it shows up, in the sense that you learned when you were really young that you couldn't have boundaries, or you didn't see anyone have boundaries. And so surviving meant doing everything for everyone else, not thinking about yourself, not having boundaries, because if you did have boundaries, that might break the connection, sever the connection. Or if you did have boundaries, there's lots of ways that you could go into this. But what I'm trying to get you to understand is people pleasing is one example of a way shadow shows up. And what we want to think about is, if that could express itself through the light, what would it look like? And so there's a part of you attached or connected to this piece that probably is a big feeler. You're a big lover. You've got a big heart. You want people to do well. You care for people. That's a light expression of that part. So notice there's a shadow and a light, okay? So if you just kill that off, you're kind of saying, well, then the light part gets killed off too. No, how we integrate is we start to learn how to express through the light with boundaries, because that's what that shadow piece is missing, is boundaries. So I went off on a bit of a tangent there, but what I'm trying to say is, I'm assuming if you're in it right now, and if you're feeling it, what you're being shown, all of this discomfort is showing you what is not going to be going forward with you. And again, it's not that we kill it off, it's the integration. So how do we find greater integration so that we're walking forward on our path in greater alignment and authenticity? Because authenticity is a really big theme for everyone in 2026. I'm gonna take a drink. I have a nice warm coffee today. Okay, so, we talked about this holding pattern, that the energy feels a bit slower, but also can be fast and intense. We're not quite moving forward because there's still more to see, integrate, and shed in preparation, okay? I want to talk a little bit about, how this has been impacting me. So, oh my gosh, the last month has been, it's been so big, and there's been so much showing up. I actually just sat down yesterday, the last couple of days actually, and I do this usually once a month. I do a bit of a monthly check-in for myself, and I look at, okay, what have been the things showing up in terms of success and wins and expansion, and then what have been the things that have been showing up that have felt really challenging, heavy, dense, that I've had to really work through or triggered me. And then I always bring it back to, and what am I desiring for myself? Because this is going to be something we talk about. Everything that's showing up is connecting to what you desire. And I talk to my women in our expanded, Empowered Awakening program a lot about this, that you might not be conscious of this desire. It could be something that you're not even aware of that you desire. Maybe on a deeper level, it's a soul desire, but it hasn't come to your, you're not aware of it yet. You're not conscious of it yet. You haven't really tapped into it yet. Or it could be a desire that you're working with, that you are actively envisioning and trying to connect to the energy of and embody that energy, right? But either way, whatever is showing up for you is connected to something that your soul desires on a deeper level, okay? And so it's really important to, one, have that awareness. And at the end of this video, I'm actually going to give you some different pieces that you can be working with each day to help you get more clarity around this. Because when I sat with this the last couple of days in terms of everything that's been showing up for me and what it is that I'm desiring and what I know I'm stepping into this year, I can feel it. The energy is, you know, when you do this work, you should start to be able to notice the energy around pieces. And for me, I can really start to feel that the energy it's coming for me, what I know is meant for me. And so of course, the last month, you know, what's really helped me on my journey is I've built this muscle around always trusting that anything that's showing up is always deeply connected to what it is that I desire, that there's always a deeper purpose, and it's always for me, capital F-O-R, for me. It's not happening to me, it's happening for me. And man, oh man, has that in itself created so much freedom for myself on my journey, because otherwise we're just in the thick, and it's hard, and it's dense, and it's heavy. And if we don't feel like there's purpose there, well, then it just feels completely powerless, and what's the point? And so for me, you know, it's become a really important thing to always ask myself, like, why would this be here? Why would this be showing up? What is it connected to? What do I need to see? And for me, you know, there have been a lot of themes over the last month around, you know, I've noticed myself since I've moved into this new home, just the move itself, I think, was hard on the nervous system, but being in a new space is also an adjustment for the nervous system. And, you know, also lots of different pieces showing up in my external in some of my different relationships where there have been conflicts, or where there have been situations or pieces showing up where it's like, that there's a trigger there. There's sometimes a really intense trigger there. And what I've come to really realize is that what all of these pieces have been doing for me is showing me where I'm still not in full trust, showing me where, based off of my triggers, I'm still trying to control because I don't trust. For me, one of my survival mechanisms through all of the things I've been through is that when I feel not safe, when I feel very dysregulated, I will go into a mode of trying to control externally. And this has been something I've really worked on over the years. But it's something that I did when I was younger because it would allow me to feel a false sense of safety in controlling what was outside of me. And then, you know, I've talked about this a lot with my motherhood journey. When I became a mom, I realized I couldn't control these little humans. And that's where a lot of the inner work really began. And I really began to start to look at my shit. But I can see that over the last month, because I have been more dysregulated. Things have been a bit, you know, I've been trying to adjust, and there's been a lot of things showing up, and it was Christmas, and it was just a busy season, and there was a lot showing up. And I could see that a lot of this was surfacing, my need to control. I was trying to like micromanage and control a lot of things. And, you know, as I've really sat with this, I've really been able to see that at the root of this, it's because my soul desires, especially in 2026, is moving into a space of greater trust. Because the human in me, and I think my soul as well, really desires to feel more softness in my life and in my energy. Well, in order for us to feel softer, there has to be trust there. And so, of course, when I look at everything that's been showing up, literally everything that has been showing up is showing me all the places that I'm still not yet in full trust. A lot of this has shown up around the energy work that I do, and I've really been invited, and actually not even invited sounds like in a nice way, initiated in a really hard, dense, karmic way. I'm being initiated into greater trust with spirit and my rituals and the practices that I have. So I've really been doubling down on that, and boy, oh boy, has that been transforming. I'm really being shown in all of my relationships where I'm not in full trust. And so I've really had to look at every single one of those triggers and be like, okay, at the root, why am I not in full trust here? Is it the person? Is it things that have occurred? Is it because this person reminds me of someone from my past? Is this related to something that has occurred in my past? So I've had to really dig in, but with this idea of like getting curious with how am I being asked, or on a deeper level, how am I desiring to deepen into greater trust with this piece, fill in the blank. Because yeah, I know for a fact 2026 is going to be a massive year of expansion for me in deepening into greater trust, because I desire to feel more of a softness in my energy. So that's a little bit around kind of what I've been going through for myself. Yeah, this past month has felt really hard, very karmic, intense, chaotic energy. Although January has also felt very slow, but there have been a lot of moments of intense energy. It's showing me what needs deeper integration. Yeah, and this piece of old ways of being, right? For me, my soul is ready to release that need to control out of fear. And so in order to be able to release that, I need to learn how to integrate that. And how do I integrate that? Well, I learn how to create greater safety for myself within and with that piece. Because when we tell ourselves to release something, to me, that's actually impossible to do. We have to go within ourselves and actually get curious with, why don't I feel safe not being in control of this? So it's almost like we have to kind of do a sideways thing and go back here. You know, this piece of like releasing control, to me, that just right away gets our nervous system into a tizzy. And so actually, how do we do the opposite? And rather than forcing ourselves to release control, what if we go within ourselves to create greater safety? And in that deepening of safety, we naturally are okay with letting go, because we feel safer and more rooted and grounded within ourselves and in our nervous system. So that actually brings us into the next piece, which is, you know, something that I talked about a lot in the 2026 energy forecast. If you haven't watched it, go back and watch it. It's really, really good. And something that I talked about a lot that is a massive theme for 2026 is nervous system regulation. Okay, why? Well, we talk about this, that expansion. You can only expand so much as you feel safe. How do we feel safe? We feel regulated in our nervous system. And so this nervous system regulation, we're really getting a taste of this already in January. I have been getting so much guidance around regulate your nervous system, regulate your nervous system. And in fact, today, even when I was on my run, I received this piece of, there's actually not a lot of digging that needs to be done. It's nervous system regulation. Right? Sometimes we do need to dig and we need to figure out what that piece is, and we need to get to the bottom of it, and we need to know where it started and get to the root in order for us to integrate it more now. But for me, and so you can check in with yourself, is there digging required, or is this more about nervous system regulation? For me, the nervous system regulation is when I feel more regulated, I create more space, more bandwidth to be able to choose, right? Because when we're dysregulated, we are reacting. When we are regulated, there's space for us to actually choose to respond in the way that we want to respond. And why this is so important is because when we are exiting out of old ways of being, one of the most important ways we do that is through choosing a new response, choosing a new action, choosing a new decision, choosing a new way of being. Well, we can't actually have access to that choice if we are dysregulated. So nervous system regulation is so important. It's actually the most important thing that you can be doing right now, especially if there's a lot showing up for you. Start there. And again, you know, I keep talking about my ladies in Empowered Awakening because I spend a lot of time with them working on some of these different pieces. I was just in our chat yesterday talking about this piece of regulating doesn't have to be this big to do. It could be 5 minutes of breathing. It could be having a cold shower and bringing yourself into a centered place. It could be moving your body. It could be walking, going for a walk in the forest. It could be singing. It could be dancing. There are so many ways that we can regulate our nervous system without it having to be this massive thing. Okay. So that is a very important piece that you need to be doing right now. I just want to check in just to make sure. Yeah, when we regulate, we can choose a response rather than react. We can choose a new response. The triggers showing up are part of your new energy for 2026. So if I look at my example of like my need to control, this trigger that's showing up and how I usually react is my need to control. That is an old reaction that I am stepping out of, that I am growing through. The new way that I want to respond, the new response, the 2026 energy I want to continue to step into is having deeper trust, not control, but trust, and allowing support in this trust. But I cannot create that new response when I'm dysregulated. And so checking in and having awareness of your nervous system each and every day is really important, because it's in that space of baseline where you have greater bandwidth to be able to make new decisions. And the new decisions are part of that 2026 energy, the new chapters, the new cycles that are beginning. So check in with your triggers, okay? I was going to go into something, but I want to just bring that piece to a close, because what I want to tell you a little bit about now are some practices that you can be doing to help yourself. So one, we talked about the nervous system regulation. Two, I would start to get curious with your triggers. What is showing up? How could this be related to what it is that I am desiring? Often when our triggers show up, it's kind of the opposite of what we are wanting to feel or what we're wanting to embody or what we're wanting to experience. So whenever I'm triggered, I always get curious with that piece. How is this connected to what I desire? And then I will also say that at night, it can be really helpful to reflect on what has shown up for you in the day, right? Because there can be so much that happens. Sometimes we can go the whole week, the whole month without actually checking in to be like, okay, what's been showing up? That's why I find my monthly check-ins can be so helpful. It's because it forces me to stop, slow down, reflect, and kind of like ground it in an anchor before I go into the next month's energy. You can be doing this each day. You can be doing this each week, but I highly recommend slowing down and creating a stop at different points to really check in with what's showing up for me. Because whatever is showing up, it may not feel in alignment, but it is connected to something that you are desiring. And so if you're not receiving that thing you're desiring, or you're wanting to figure out how to connect with it sooner, working with the triggers and the activations and the contrast is how you begin to embody more of the energy that you want to be embodying to connect with what you desire. Okay? Yeah, that's kind of it, my friends. This 2026 energy, I feel this is going to be the energy that carries us through. When I said 2026, sorry, this January energy, I feel like it's going to carry us through pretty much through the whole month, depending on, it could carry you through the whole year if you're not actually working with this stuff. So if you're being intentional and you're sitting with it and you're practicing awareness and you're reflecting and you're figuring out maybe the new responses that you want to have or what you want to do differently, then I don't see this energy going with you past January. Because remember, it's meant to be preparation energy. We are in a big initiation phase right now. We are being initiated into new cycles, into new chapters. But if you're not working with what's here now, then it will bleed into what's meant to be coming, right? What we're meant to be stepping into. And it's probably going to feel messier than how you might want it to feel come, say, February, when we're going to start to notice a shift in energy, right? That's the Chinese New Year, I believe, is when it switches from the year of the snake to the year of the fire horse. And then February is when energy is going to start to shift. And then March is when we have our spring equinox and we're entering into a true new year seasonally. So February, March is when we're going to really start to feel the shifts in the energy. And if you're doing the work now in terms of reflecting, practicing awareness, working with the triggers and integrating and making new responses, choosing new responses, well then that's the most important thing you can be doing right now because it's preparing you. So, just to remind you, if you're needing support with this, I obviously have my one-to-one Akashic Records soul readings. This can allow you to understand more around karmic pieces that might be showing up on a deeper level, what your soul is desiring. My work in the Akashic Records is meant to help bring you home deeper and closer to your truth, deeper and closer in alignment with who you are and what you're desiring in this life. And so we access a lot of more quantum energy to help figure out why your soul chose certain pieces, to help figure out what your soul is desiring. If you're struggling to know what you desire, Akashic Record soul reading can be really helpful for that. And then, of course, I also have my one-to-one soul coaching. And this is a real deep dive into, what you're wanting to experience in your life right now. What is the resistance that's getting in the way? And how do we help you take soul-aligned steps and embody more of the energy of what you're desiring in your life? My one-to-one soul coaching is near and dear to my heart because it's really been a beautiful evolution of everything that I have needed on my journey. And these are a lot of the practices and the tools and the support you get in these sessions. We do a mixture of somatic work, parts work. There's a lot of deepening into your intuition and building self-trust and developing your inner power. So that's a different take on helping you figure it all out within yourself and on your path. If you have any questions, let me know. Please leave a comment if you found this really helpful. Share it with those who might be struggling in this month of January. And I will see you next week.